I started teaching. I think I was the only unqualified teacher in the program there. I was teaching regression analysis at the social science faculty. I had a law degree, PhD in law, but no degree in the social sciences. I had an office there, so I was surrounded by statisticians, which is also an interesting experience if you don't know anything about statistics, basically, other than some simple regression analysis. So I had a roommate who was, so this program, SPSS, you can use that to run statistical analysis, and it's not many people like it, especially the students. But I had a roommate who could actually test the calculations that were going on in the program, so that was mind-blowing to me. And then years later, I saw a publication on network analysis, and I thought, that's really cool, network analysis, because somebody was mapping all the decisions and how they relate, so core decisions, and how they relate, and I was like, wow, that's really cool and interesting, but I'm never going to be able to do it because it's too difficult. And then a few years later, I had a PhD student who graduated, and she went to Singapore working as a postdoc, and after a few months I was asking, what are you working on? And she said, I'm working on network analysis. Explain to me, isn't that too difficult? She said, no, it's very easy, everybody can do it. So I thought, well, everybody can do it, I can do it, right? So I started trying it, and it became pretty interesting. It's fairly simple. You can download some open source software, try it yourself, not that difficult. But I thought, you can go beyond. If you can combine like empirical research with legal research with this, and combine it with technology, everything I do, which is basically entering keywords in the system and then running this network analysis, can you do that in an automated process? And that's what I wanted to figure out if that was possible. So that's what I'm going to present now a little bit. Show you what I'm doing. If there's questions, please ask. I'm not a programmer, so I don't know much about programming. I haven't built this myself, so I'm working with somebody from what we call the eScience Center, which is a government-paid, government-funded organization that basically lends out engineers to people who need it, like me, right? So I know a little bit of programming, but not enough to do what I'm going to show here. So basically the idea is to map relationships between core decisions. As legal scholars or practitioners, we try to find out what are the most important decisions, and this I try to visualize and basically do it in an automated way. I have a bunch of students working on this, so Joey's going to present his work. He's a master's student. He's going to present his master thesis, basically. There's another student in the room, Saz. He also is also working on it. Not on the technology, because the technology we're making for Dutch law for now. But once we have that, it should be able to expand it to on the European level. And my dream is to basically go beyond and do a sort of comparative law 2.0, where you can basically test the impact of a certain European rule on the national level without like much human intervention. But I'll talk a little bit about that later. Where's my pointer? Okay. So. Ross was already mentioned. There's also Ravel Law, a very interesting project. So two basically lawyers from Stanford University, people like me who are like, let's try this because we can do this in a better way. And this is what they have now. So basically, if you click on one node, which is a court decision, then you see which other court decisions are also relevant. And we measure relevance in network analysis by looking at citations. So consider us a community of people, and you're very popular, so everybody communicates with you, so you're basically in the center, you're this node in the middle right here, a lot of communication, and I'm a loser, right? Nobody wants to talk to me, so I'm probably around here, right? And that's basically what network analysis does. You look at communication, incoming, outgoing communication, and you can also do that for court decisions. So if I'm a court, if I'm a judge, actually I am, and then I cite another court decision, then that court decision becomes increasingly popular if I do that multiple times and if my colleagues do that at the same time, right? And that's the basic idea. You're basically measuring popularity and assuming that these citations are not random, that they're meaningful, then you can measure popularity. And a lot of studies have shown that measuring popularity in that way approximates the relevance defined by experts. And what we will see is Joe is one of the examples. He's one of the students who's been working on director's liability for a few months, and in terms of determining relevance, he's on the same level as experts, right? So that's what you can do. So Revelaw, they're now collecting millions of dollars. They're at Harvard University. All the case law is going to go through scanners, so they have everything electronically, and they have like a mega database within a year with all the case law, and they can do this for all cases, and they can go beyond. They can see, if you're going to judge X in district Y, what cases does that court or judge cite, right? So you can enhance your predictability of the outcomes of cases. That's what we're trying to do as well, but in a little different way. So this is what the tool looks like. This is the network that you see. This is a test network based on employees' liability, and this doesn't tell you much yet, but you can already see certain clusters. Like you can see there's a cluster over here, there's a cluster over here, there's a cluster of decisions over here, maybe over here. And the bigger the node is, so all these nodes are decisions, right? And all these lines are the references to basically other decisions. So the bigger this node becomes, the more popular it becomes, right? So if I look at this, it's pretty easy to identify the cases that are most relevant or most popular in my network. So instead of having to read all these cases, if I do everything in an automated way, I type in some keywords and I get this in front of my screen and I have expert possibilities and can get lists of the popularity or relevance of cases. Basically my search is reduced from 5 or 6 months to basically 50 seconds, right? So this increases your speed of knowledgeability tremendously. All right, this is something new that we're doing. This is the clustering, so this is basically the same network, but now we have the computer automatically cluster the groups of decisions, right? So this is a group of decisions, an orange cluster, you have a red cluster, this is a cluster, etc. And the interesting thing is, so this is what we've done last week, basically. And before that, I was doing this myself, doing the clustering myself. It took me a week looking at all these cases. This is better. This is better what I've been doing, right? Because when I look at my clusters compared to this, like there's much overlap, so that's good, you would say. But there's also differences, and when I look at those differences, I think this is better in terms of, this makes more sense the way the computer or the algorithm clusters these decisions compared to how I do it, which is kind of interesting. I feel kind of sad as well because my expertise is being beaten by a computer. But these are the things that we're trying to do. So accelerating the search process, and also when you look at this from, if you see this as a broccoli, you have the root of the broccoli, and if you cut the root apart, your whole broccoli falls apart, right? So what decisions are the glue for this network? You can also identify that with network analysis, and it turns out that I think like this decision, if you take that away from the network, then your network basically falls apart. And that's something you will never be able to read, right? When you read text, you will never see what the glue is that holds this network together. And by visualizing it, it tells you the story. It tells you a story of which decisions are relevant, why they were relevant, and how decisions became relevant. Yes?
What are the colors mean here?
Okay, so these colors are just different topics, basically, right? So this is a cluster on, for example, causation. This is a cluster on the duty of care. It represents different topics, basically.
I'm not sure if I see it properly. In the bottom left, there's 2 clusters that are just connected by one red dot.
This one?
Yeah. Are the 2 colors different, or is it the same color just split in half? I can't really see from here.
Yeah, there's one thing we're working on. So some of the colors overlap. So I don't know the answer yet.
To be different here.
Yeah. I think so. I don't know. It might be the same because sometimes this one is connected to this.
Yeah, it's not connected to the blue.
Oh, okay. It's just
so I think it just runs through here and it's just connected to this one. But this one, that's that's a network analysis algorithm. The position doesn't always tell you everything. So it might just be here because that's more convenient to put it there.
Oh, okay.
But there are some clusters that might, this cluster might be different than this one might be different than that one. We're still working on the coloring.
what is your keyword here, or what was the purpose of your search?
Right, so this is on employer's liability. So if as an employee I suffer a loss because I stick my hand into a machine and I lose my hand, is my employer liable for that loss? Or if I drive to work and I get into an accident, is that employer liable for that? Okay. Oh, this is already there. Okay. Yeah, so this is a little bit of the introduction about what we're trying to do. This is, in my opinion, I'm convinced that this is going to cause a transformation of the field, because this is a very different way of searching, and also raises questions about how we as legal scholars search for case law, because that might be very different as well. We search based on keywords, but one thing we're working on now, because maybe I miss out on something because my keywords are too specific or biased or in whatever way. So one thing we're also doing is we identify the relevant cases based on the keywords. We look at the references, and then you get this network. But if you look at the references of the references, then you include like a lot of other cases as well, and it might like repair the deficiency of your search. So maybe the whole way we search for case law is going to change as well.
So what is the difference between this one, the one that is already being published by, I don't know, it was Harvard, Stanford, or the one you showed us?
Okay, yeah, good question. Yeah, so I like our tool better, obviously. It's for different purposes. I mean, it depends on what you do. So basically, this is more for explorative purposes. This is what you get. This is the whole case law on employer's liability. What you can do with this is navigate through and you say, you know, I want to make a selection of this because I think these cases are more important. And after the presentation, we can pull up the link. I can show you a little bit more, but I just want to start it simpler. Because if you click on a node, then you get the decision, and you click on the decision, you get the full decision, for example. You can make selections. You can zoom in on them. You can say, in this picture, give me only this cluster, right? Or give me only this cluster, for example. You can make selections and then navigate through your network. Well, you can do it with Ravelog, and you see it here, you have a timeline. So this is based on the timeline. So if you're looking at for more recent decisions, then you basically want to make a cutoff here and only focus on the decisions that are over here, right? Because maybe this decision is not that relevant anymore because it was made in 1984 or 1985. So if you're interested in time and where the decision lies in terms of time, then this is probably better. Also, if you already have a decision that's relevant, if you think like, okay, this is a decision that's relevant, or this one is relevant, then you click on it and you see the relationships to other decisions. So basically you want to use Ravelog more, and Ravelog is better if you already know a decision that's relevant for you, because then it directly connects you to other decisions. I like this better because it allows you to navigate through the network yourself, and what I'll show you later is you have all these filter options, so you can also select the years, for example. One thing we want to work on is see how the network evolves over time, right? Because maybe here you see like a big cluster, but maybe this wasn't the case in 1980. Maybe the network looked differently in 1980. How did that network evolve over time? That's something we will never be able to do when we read text. And by visualizing this, it's just a matter of creating the technology, building the technology, and then you can just do it for X amount of topics.
Maybe it's just, I don't know anything about law and everything, but like, so in this, so the difference is that in the other case you have to know as a lawyer kind of your starting point, right? Because you said that if the thing was bigger, it meant that it was more important, right? But in your case, you don't have to know everything, right? You just have to introduce some keywords and then it will tell you how the whole thing works. Right? Is that correct?
Yeah, if you're going to sit with me for 20 minutes or 30 minutes and you're going to do this, and you know the basic concepts, which you probably now understand, you will be able to identify the relevant cases. And you probably will be able to explain your fellow students a little bit about employer's liability. If I can explain it to you as a non-expert, like even a non-legal student, non-law student, then what it will do with people who are trained, right? It's gonna boost the knowledge tremendously.
And is the point of this for only people who are trained? Because I mean, for your explanation, it seems like it's a really easy process, right? You're just gonna be able to have all this information about these cases, and you don't really need to be an expert in law in order to use this one, right?
I mean, it helps to be an expert, right? You're not. This is not going to replace lawyers. This is also not going to replace lawyers. But it's going to change the way we search. So you pay between 150 and 300 euros for a lawyer who has to look up the case law himself or herself and identify the relevant cases, right? Or say to a paralegal, like, hey, paralegal, you go find the relevant case. And then the paralegal is going to work for a day for 100 hours, 100 euros an hour, right? If you can replace that by this, it will reduce the cost tremendously. So my business plan is basically to commercialize this product at some point, sell it to some law firm so it can have some revenues to further develop the system. And in the meantime, have it available freely for all students, for all university, all academics, nonprofit organizations. And when there's enough revenue or enough money, you open it up for everybody for free. But I mean, do you want to pay Kluger like 2,000 euros to have like a system, or do you want to pay like 200 euros for a year to use this and find the case law and within